Yo, what's going on everybody? It's Freaky299 and welcome back to another Destiny 2 The Final Shape Endgame build. This time we have the wonderful Solar Hunter build that comes to you to absolutely one-shot any Grandmaster champion or bosses that you are dealing with. This Solar Hunter, of course, is utilizing the massive damage that you get on your golden gun shots, as well as the exotic sniper rifle still hunt, to make quick work of Grandmaster Nightfalls so you can just get in, fire off golden gun shots, and lay waste to everything that you come to. This build absolutely destroys any content you step into, as well as going into raids and melting those bosses in there. So of course, with all my build videos, there's going to be a picture at the end of the video, along with a dim link in the description for easy copying. Without further ado, let's jump into the subclass. Now, starting off with the subclass, we are using Prismatic here. Of course, Prismatic is absolutely amazing on Hunter because of their grenade. Hailfire Spike just does tons of damage, slows enemies and ignites them, and it just clears out entire rooms, especially when you line up the placement of these grenades. Hailfire Spike is just probably one of the best prismatic grenades just because it can stick to enemies. You can absolutely load up champions or bosses with multiple of these grenades to just deal massive damage. Now moving into the super, we are using Golden Gun here, of course. Golden Gun is just a fantastic super. Usually you have 3 shots, but of course with us we are using Celestial Nighthawk, which transforms Golden Gun into a one-shot weapon. This weapon just gets absolutely insane damage that you can just pop your super and one-shot a Grandmaster champion, or just deal a chunk of a enemy's health or like a boss's health, as well as if you are Radiant, this also gets a buff from that. This just means that whenever you stun a champion and you're in the thick of battle, you can just pop a super, one-shot that champion, get it down, and you don't have to deal with it, and you can go forward, pop your Prismatic, and continue the flow of this build. Golden Gun just really comes in handy when you need to delete an enemy from the game and you don't have time to waste. And along with that, because we are using a solar super, we are benefiting from fast to purpose, and when we pick up an orb of power, we are getting restoration. Restoration is just a really handy buff because it's just uninterrupted healing for us, allowing us to go into the middle of combat, survive with that healing, and just run around and get the damage that we need. Now, moving forward, we are using Gambler's Dodge here. Gambler's Dodge is really nice because when we dodge near an enemy, we're going to be recharging our melee ability, allowing us to do some cool combos and throw tons of melees. Moving forward from Gambler's Dodge, we are taking Snare Bomb, as it allows us to weaken our enemies as well as deal some intermittent void damage whenever we need it. Snare Bomb, I find, is absolutely amazing because when paired with our Golden Gun and our Stillhut Golden Gun, it means that we just get massive amounts of damage off because we are weakening our enemies first and then hitting them with a massive Golden Gun shot. It's really nice when you're in Grandmaster Nightfalls and you can throw this Snare Bomb at like a wizard or something, and it causes them to bring their arms up and basically hide away, allowing you to get away from the battle or get some easy headshots off. Moving forward from the melee, we are taking Duskfield Grenade here, but you can kind of choose whatever grenade you want. I would recommend Duskfield here because it actually allows us to slow overload champions consistently. Just throwing down Duskfield in the middle of a champion, they just get stunned in it, allowing us to freeze them and get easier Golden Gun shots off. But it also allows us to freeze other enemies and get easier headshots off, or just allow us to stay safe in the middle of combat. Moving forward to the aspects, we are using Ascension here, which is a new arc aspect that came with the final shape. Ascension allows us to use our class ability to propel ourselves upwards into the air, bursting a bunch of arc energy out, jolting targets, and amplifying ourselves and our allies. Now, Ascension can be a little underwhelming, but I find it works really nicely with this build because it allows us to self-proc Amplified without having to go close to any enemies, and Amplified synergizes with one of the artifact perks, Galvanic Armor, which makes it so we have increased damage reduction while we have Amplified applied to us. Ascension allowing us to automatically apply Amplified to us is really nice, especially when you pair it alongside something like Winter's Shroud, which makes it so when we dodge, we slow nearby targets, but when we slow enemies, we increase our class ability regeneration. Since we're using something like Duskfield, it means that whenever we're slowing targets, we're getting our dodge back, and it allows us to use Ascension very rapidly, and in some cases you can use an Ascension, get back your class ability, and then dodge to throw out 2 snare bombs. It's really nice to have, and I find the ability loop is pretty good, especially when in Grandmaster Nightfalls and you need a bit of extra arc damage or some jolting, as well as getting that amplified means that we just have more damage resistance to actually survive in stuff like endgame content in Grandmaster Nightfalls. And Winter Shroud just comes in huge handy because, of course, if we are actually close to enemies and we do need to dodge, we can apply that slow. If we have a Duskfield grenade down, then that's a freeze, and then we can shatter them. So Winter Shroud, Ascension, a very nice combo to try out. Now, moving forward to the aspects, of course we already covered Facet of Purpose, but we are using Facet of Hope, so while we have an elemental buff applied to us, our class ability regenerates more quickly. Of course, if we are doing this Amplified loop with Ascension, we are having Amplified applied to us, and we are getting that increased class ability regeneration. We are also using Facet of Devotion, so defeating targets afflicted with stasis or strand debuffs grants us bonus light transcendent energy. When we are slowing enemies, we are defeating them as well, and we're getting that bonus light transcendence energy. And this helps out a ton because it means we don't have to rely on our sniper to actually deal light damage, and instead just taking down targets fills up our light meter, and then we get our transcendence going. Moving over, we have Facet of Protection, so while surrounded by combatants, we are more resistant to incoming damage, and while we are transcendent, this effect is increased for us. Having this extra damage resistant goes a long way, especially in Grandmaster Nightfalls, where you are constantly surrounded by enemies, and having this little bit of extra damage resistance helps out a ton. And then moving forward, we are also using Facet of Ruin, so this increases the size and damage of the burst when we shatter Stasis Crystal or Frozen Target, as well as it increases the area of effective solar ignitions. We are applying a lot of ignitions with our sniper rifle this season, and we are also shattering tons of enemies with our Duskfield grenade and our Winter Shroud, so this just boosts up our damage a ton, as well as we are using Facet of Generosity, so while we are defeating targets while transcendent, we are creating orbs of power off all those takedowns. Generating these orbs is huge because it means that we can get our Still Hunt super back very quickly with all the orbs that drop on the field, and the more orbs we are picking up, the more we are getting our Still Hunt super and the more we can use it. Moving forward to the weapons, our main exotic of choice is going to be none other than the Still Hunt exotic sniper rifle. This solar sniper is just absolutely deadly, and of course if you've been playing this game, you have been using this weapon. It is a DLC seller because it just does insane damage, and some of the most damage we have probably seen from a weapon ever. Still Hunt just absolutely goes crazy because it allows you to pick up orbs of power or land precision hits to charge up your super bar, and then activate that super bar and fire off a golden gun shot. Not only is that just amazing in of itself, but when hunters have Celestial Nighthawk on, it actually synergizes, and instead of getting multiple golden gun shots off with Still Hunt, you instead get one super powerful golden gun shot that deals sometimes more damage than your super in certain activities. This means that Still Hunt is the top damage weapon, and just recently it was actually hit by a nerf, but it doesn't even matter because it still one-shots Grandmaster champions, it still absolutely shreds through Grandmaster bosses' health bars, and it melts through raid bosses time and time again. Still Hunt is the probable best exotic we have ever received, and the damage it deals is just insane. You gotta try this out. You gotta use it in pretty much every activity you go into and line up those precision shots to absolutely melt whatever you come into contact with. Still Hunt is just amazing, and the fact that picking up orbs of power also fills up its super means that you can get into a pretty consistent loop of just generating orbs and conserving ammo to actually get your golden gun shots off. It's just a perfect exotic weapon, and even after a nerf, it is still hitting insane numbers, and you can still take it into Grandmaster Nightfalls and just melt through bosses and champions like they are nothing. And of course, for weapons to pair up with Still Hunt, just put on whatever weapons you need to deal with champions. What I would recommend having on is something like a machine gun in your heavy weapon slot. Still Hunt is a powerful weapon, and it's pretty much our heavy weapon, which means that we need a little bit more help actually dealing with tons of ads and orange bars. And since we are primarily saving our Still Hunt for our yellow bars and champions and bosses, that means we need a machine gun to actually melt through those orange bars that can come and absolutely shred our health bars. I would recommend the Pro Memoria machine gun that comes from the final shape. It is a fantastic machine gun, it's craftable, as well as it has the origin trait Dealer's Choice, which gives you bonus super energy when you are getting takedowns, and technically Still Hunt applies Dealer's Choice for this synergy, meaning that if you rock Pro Memoria and Still Hunt, and then something like the Call or Bold Endings, you have 3 Dealer's Choice weapons and getting tons of super energy back. So if you actually do have the weapons crafted, or if you do have good rolls, I would recommend trying out Dealer's Choice weapons paired alongside Still Hunt to see the increased super regeneration you get. Because the more golden gun shots you get off, the more damage you are dealing and the more you are shredding through content. And who doesn't want more supers? Moving to the artifact perk, in the first column we're grabbing 3 anti-champion mods. Specifically, we are grabbing anti-barrier sniper rifle, which is going to grant our Still Hunt anti-barrier rounds, allowing us to stun barrier champions and shred through any shielding in the game. In second column, we are grabbing Overcharged Armory, so weapons with Dealer's Choice, Radiolaria Transposer, Collective Purpose, and Sundering Origin traits are all overcharged. Overcharged is a 25% damage perk in endgame content like Expert, Master, or Grandmaster content, and it's really helpful, especially when you are in endgame content, and that 25% damage boost can really make a big difference. Moving down, we are also using Winning Hand, which is the artifact perk I mentioned before. This is really nice to have, especially on something like Pro Memoria or Bold Endings, because it means that you just have pseudo incandescent and can clear out ads that much quicker. Moving over to third column, we are grabbing Elemental Siphon, so rapid final blows with a weapon matching our equipped super, which would be Solar, creates an elemental pickup that matches our equipped super, which would be a Fire Sprite. Just a little bonus whenever we are clearing out ads and enemies with our Solar Still Hunt, as well as we are using incendiary rifle rounds, which makes it so Solar Sniper Rifle precision hits scorch targets, and this also means that after enough precision hits it causes an ignition, which of course Still Hunt synergizes perfectly with. Moving forward to fourth column, we are grabbing Void Hegemony, so while we are Prismatic and we are defeating weakened targets, we provide ourselves with a small Void Overshield. This is really nice to have because again, we are weakening enemies with our Snare Bomb, and that is weakening enemies, then we defeat them, then we get the small Void Overshield, and that just provides us some extra damage resistance, survivability, and endgame content. As well as we are using Radiant Orb, so whenever we pick up an Orb of Power, we are granting ourselves Radiant, which is a damage boost to all of our weapons. It's anti-barrier to any of our weapons that don't have champion mods, as well as it makes our Golden Gun super much more powerful. And then we are also using Solar Fulmination, so our ignitions do increase damage and increased radius. We are causing ignitions with this artifact perk, Rifle Rounds, so with all the ignitions we cause with it, we are just getting more damage from that. And then we are also using Shield Crush, so while we have our Void Overshield, our melee recharges faster and deals increased damage, and while we are Amplified or Radiant, our Grenade recharges faster and deals increased damage, which we are pretty much constantly having Amplified or Radiant, so we are always getting that Grenade increased recharge. And then Void Overshield comes whenever we are using our melee, which whenever we use our melee, we are usually off our melee charge, and then we get that increased recharge rate from having the Void Overshield, which we get from defeating weakened targets with Void Hegemony. And then we are also using Sniper's Meditation here, so sniper rifle hits grant stacking sniper rifle damage, stability, and reload bonuses for a short time. This makes Still Hunt absolutely amazing because it just increases its damage that much more, and means that we can just hit even bigger numbers with it. Onto the armor. For our helmet, we have the exotic Celestial Nighthawk, which comes with the intrinsic perk Hawkeye Hack. This makes it so precision final blows reduce the cooldown of our super, as well as modifies our golden gun to fire a single high damage shot. This also makes it so the targets defeated by that shot give us super energy and they explode. Precision final blows reducing the cooldown of our super means that we actually want to hit as much precision final blows as we can, which means precision weaponry is more in line with this build. This means that if you are using something like the Call, you are missing out on extra precision hits that you could get with something like Bold Endings. But it does means that using Pro Memoria is very useful because you can get tons of precision hits with that, and pair it alongside something like Dragonfly to mean that all those precision hits take down multiple enemies around them. Celestial Nighthawk is just a fantastic exotic, and it's just really good to pair alongside Prismatic because it means you have all the ad clearing capabilities of Transcendence and then have all the damage of a Golden Gun one-shot super. Moving forward to the Armour Mods, we are grabbing a Heavy Ammo Finder and Heavy Ammo Scout. This means that all the precision weapon takedowns that we are getting is going to be generating heavy ammo for us, and whenever heavy ammo bricks are generated, it's going to scout a brick for our allies. Now, this is really nice to have because again, we are using Still Hunt mainly as our heavy weapon, and we do get enough special ammo drops to use Still Hunt effectively, which means that we need actual more ammo for our heavy weapon like Pro Memoria to clear out all of the ads when we are in those hectic situations. As well as we are using Strand Siphon because we are using Pro Memoria and usually a Strand primary weapon. This means that we don't have to actually use a Harmonic Siphon and rely on generating Orbs of Power with our Still Hunt, and instead we just generate Orbs of Power on all of our Pro Memoria takedowns and the Call takedowns or whatever strand weapon we are using. Of course, if you decide to switch up your weaponry, just make sure you change your siphon mods. If you do decide to use something like a solar or heavy machine gun and a kinetic primary, something like that, then you can switch over to harmonic siphon or a kinetic siphon there. Now, touching quickly on the stat focusing, we want to make sure that we are focusing firstly resilience for that 30% damage reduction when we are at 100. This 30% damage reduction is huge, especially when we are dealing with Grandmaster Nightfalls, when things can one-shot you when you don't have everything going at once. Not having this 30% damage reduction can mean the difference between actually grinding out Grandmaster Nightfall champions or just getting one-shot by them. Secondly, we want to make sure that we are focusing mobility. Getting mobility to 100 means that we can dodge more, we can get more snare bomb charges, and we can use Ascension a lot more. Making sure that we have Amplified applied to us means that we actually have that damage resist active, as well as we can move around the battlefield easier with all of our dodging, our slowing, and our snare bombs. Down to the gauntlets, we are grabbing Fonta Focus, so while we have an armor charge, we are getting a plus 30 to our discipline. This means that we don't want to actually ride higher than 70 discipline and actually stay in that range of 70 or below, because getting that plus 30 means that we go up to 100, but any higher means that we are wasting those discipline stats. We are also grabbing a Focusing Strike, so while we deal damage with our Snare Bomb, we are getting some class ability energy back, as well as Impact Induction, so when we deal that damage with our Snare Bomb, we are getting some grenade energy back. We get our Snare Bomb back very quickly because of our dodge being back so quickly, so throwing out more melees means that we can generate more energy for our grenade and our dodge, feeding into that loop of constantly using dodge, melee, throwing in ascensions here and there, and throwing out our dusk fields whenever we have them. Down to the chest piece, we are rocking a double elemental resist to match whatever the activity's threat modifier is. This means that if you are dealing with a solar threat, you are putting on a double solar resistance and then a third elemental resistance to deal with whatever secondary damage sources there are in that activity. If you are dealing with something like Void Shriekers or Ogres, then putting on a Void Resist can be helpful, or if you are dealing with tons of snipers or arc snipers, then an arc resistance can be very helpful. Just round out whatever damage sources you are finding you are being hit with the most, And then if you're going into content that doesn't have a threat modifier, then I would recommend just rocking one of each, Solar, Void, Arc. And then if you are running into new content, then maybe slap on a strand resistance or stasis if you run into omens. Down to the boots, we are rocking a double solar weapon surge, so while we have an armor charge, we're getting a 17% increased damage to our solar weapons. Still Hunt receives this damage, so this is huge because the more damage on Still Hunt, the more damage on everything else. And then we are using recuperation, so whenever we pick up an armor power, we are granting ourselves a little burst of health. This of course stacks alongside restoration, so we get that burst of health and we get that consistent healing, allowing us to survive in whatever scenario we are in. And finally on the class item, we have double bomber, so whenever we use our class ability, we are generating grenade energy for ourselves. We are using our class ability tons with all the dodging and ascension, so this just generates tons of grenade energy for us. And then we have a font of restoration, so while we have an armor charge, we have a plus 30 to our recovery. Very nice to have because it means less time having to wait for our health to regen and more time spent in the actual battlefield. And that is going to do it for the build. Now, of course, this is your Golden Gun Prismatic Hunter build, but this build can actually get you into Grandmaster Nightfalls, get you into any piece of content you're running into, and absolutely shred it down with all your Golden Gun shots, all your super generation, all your orbs created, and all the havoc and damage you cause on the battlefield. The amount of Transcendence pops I use in a single activity is just insane, because the ability generation, all of the Transcendence energy generation is just wild, especially when you're stepping into something like a Grandmaster Nightfall and you are surrounded by enemies throwing Hailfire spikes, snare bombs, dodging, using your ascension, jolting everything, giving yourself amplified, and then popping out your golden gun to one-shot a champion, popping out your Still Hunt golden gun to one-shot a yellow bar. Still Hunt and Golden Gun are just a perfect pairing, and of course paired with Celestial Nighthawk makes it the absolute insane damage choice that it is. Stepping into raids and master raids means that this build is going to thrive even more, because of course for those heavy damage numbers that you need on raid bosses and master raid bosses, this build is going to deliver on that, and it's going to deliver on all the survivability that you need to actually get into those master raids and clear them. This build will seriously do everything you need to in the game, and it'll do it spectacularly because you'll just be one-shotting everything you come across. Of course, with all my builds, there's going to be a picture on screen as well as a dim link in the description for easy copying. And of course, if you liked the video, be sure to leave a like, and if you have anything to say, leave a comment, as I always try to respond to anything you say down there. It's a joy to make these builds and share them with you and see that you tried them and test out different weapons and see how you just kind of make them better or just make them your own. I love making these builds for all of you, and the community that we are really kind of making on this channel is just beautiful to actually see develop in real time. So thank you everybody so much for watching. I've been FreakyDude99, and we'll see you in the next video. Peace out.